Okay, in this video we are going to quickly set up some basic working lights. Now, lighting in rendering and animation is kind of a long process, and you're tweaking it pretty much throughout the whole thing, and then at the end you go through and make sure your lighting is just so. So what we're doing right now is basically setting up lights so that we can see what's going on. So we should pause a minute and talk a little bit about rendering engines. So by default, Blender 2.8 starts out in the render engine of Eevee, which is a real-time, quite fast engine that we're going to be spending a lot of time in. The other option is Cycles, which is a ray tracing engine, and it is a lot more physically accurate. So depending on what we're trying to do, we might use Eevee and we might use Cycles. I use both. I'm actually working on a project right now that requires simulating the light coming through blinds as they rotate and as the sun moves, and that's just too that sort of thing demands too much precision for Eevee. Eevee can't really handle that, but Cycles can. The major difference between these two that you should know about, besides accuracy, is Eevee's fast and Cycles is slow. So we're going to be using Eevee for now. We are going to set up just a couple of quick settings in here, but first we're going to change our viewport. Currently we're in solid, so up here these buttons are display types. So you've got wireframe, solid, you have look dev, which is sort of like it's basically like a rendered view for cheaters, and then you have rendered view. So this is showing us what the scene looks like basically if we were to hit the render button. As you can see, it doesn't look too good. So we're just going to go through here and click a few buttons. We're going to say ambient occlusion. We're going to say screen space reflections, and open that up and turn off half res trace, and I think turn on refraction. Go down to shadows, change that to VSM, cube size to 1024. Check high bit depth and soft shadows. If you have a low performing GPU, don't check those, but you probably do, so you're probably fine with that. Change the alpha here to transparent, and color management, film look is what we want. Change that to medium high contrast. I tend to get better control with that. And I like to start my exposure at 0.8 or 1, and my gamma I drop it down to 0.4. Yeah, simply do that at 1. Yeah. Okay, so those are just some real quick basic settings that I use, and these apply to Eevee only. They're not going to matter if you switch over to Cycles, which we will talk about at a later date. Another setting you'll want to look at. So this is the resolution of your image, 19 by 20 by 1080. That's common. If you wanted to do half of that for like a low-res test render, you can do that. But for Eevee, you don't really need to mess around with that. I like to set my frame rate to 30 frames per second for animations. And then output, you would select where you want that to go, but we'll get into that later. Okay, so that's it for basic setups for your or basic settings for your rendering engine for Eevee. And now we're going to worry about lights. So to create stuff, basically click anywhere in the space and hit Shift A, and we're looking for lights. So we're going to add an area light. Oh, and since I wasn't paying attention to where I put it, there we go. I stuck it in electrical. Yeah, and then lighting stuff. So it's not totally wrong, but we don't want it there actually. We want it. We want to create a new collection called lighting, called Blender lights, to differentiate from the models of lighting stuff that we have. And so we've got this light selected. Let's hit move, and we're going to move that over to Blender lights. Turn electrical back off. Oh. Apparently that didn't... I didn't have it selected. There we go. Move it over to Blender lights. We can turn electrical back off, and this light is going to be on. And now if we wanted to move it, and by moving it, we have it selected, we hit the G key, and then we move the cursor. we can see that it's starting to light stuff, which is kind of exciting. We can move it up and down. And the way I'm constraining the movement here is I hit G to move it. If I move my cursor, it moves. And then if I hit Z, or Z, for the Brits, it constrains it to that axis. I could hit X, constrains it to the X-axis. I could hit Y, constrains it to the Y-axis. Alright, so I'm going to bring that actually to there. And I'm going to go into the settings for it. So the little light bulb, that's the light settings. It's currently set to 1 watt. I'm going to change it to 10 watts. It's a little brighter. I like that nicer. And I'm going to make the color slightly warm. Again, these are all settings that we can mess with later. So as you can see, it looks kind of cool. It's lighting stuff. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop in here so that I'm in this space, and I'm going to turn the roof visibility back on. And you can see it got dark in here, and that's because the light is above the roof, which is what I was looking for. So I'm going to hit G and then Z and then start moving my cursor down until I start seeing things again. So there it goes. The light just popped back into this space. And then I'm going to turn the roof back off so that I can be in the space. And I'm going to, so now that this light is at the elevation I want, I can move it in the X and Y planes. I'm going to hit G, Y, move it over here, and then G and X, move it over there just a little bit. And then this is shape size. It says it's 1 foot, so it's 1 foot by 1 foot square. I'm going to change that to a rectangle, and I'm going to make it like 4 inches in one direction. You can see it's now rectangular. I'm going to make that 6 foot in the other. You can just hit 6, single quotation mark, whatever, and it understands that that's 6 foot. Yeah. And so at this point, I'm just putting a couple lights in here so that I can see stuff. Sometimes it's nice to actually mimic, what the electrical folks actually went to the effort of modeling. So, since it's easy, since they're right here, I'm just going to go ahead and move my light to approximately where this light is. So, and it looks like that's more like a 7 or 8 foot beam. So let's see, 8 feet? Yeah. Okay, cool. So I just put my area light here, and that's coming pretty close to mimicking, this lighting fixture right here. So another thing that I should talk about is perspective versus orthographic. Right now we're in orthographic view, and if you notice, I want to get in this room, and I can't because I'm in orthographic view. If I hit 5 on the numpad, I switch between the two view types. Now I'm in perspective. I can kind of drop in and look at things. Be like, okay, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this area light around, and what I'm going to create what's called a linked copy. Linked copy means that basically they're all instanced, which is the same as having multiple types of the same family in Revit. But to create a linked duplicate, I'm going to hit Alt-D. So I hit Alt-D, and now I've got another light as the duplicate, and I can move it around wherever. It's already in move mode. And I want to move it in the X direction, so I'm going to hit X, line it up with that. I'm going to hit Alt-D again, X, and line it up with that. And I've got some more lights. So I'm going to do Alt-D again, and then okay, so this room is lit. Literally. It's whoa, sorry for that. It's quite bright in there. Maybe 10 watts is too much. I don't know, 5 watts. This isn't this isn't like an IES profile for these lights. This is artistic interpretation. So you just tweak these numbers till they look good, right? So don't sweat that too hard. Okay, so that's lit. I'm excited about that, and I'm going to look over. I'm going to come over here into this other interior space, which we can't see right now because it's not lit yet. Now, since we're moving into a different space, the lights I want over here might be different. So I'm going to create just a duplicate, not a linked duplicate. To do that, I'm going to hit Shift D, and I'm going to move it over here and start looking around. Looks like I've got some more light fixtures that I can match the geometry to. So I'm going to go there and then drop it down. And then now I'm going to make a linked duplicate, Alt D X, Alt D X. And so, back to perspective. So this is an example where, I'm so sorry, my GPU is loud as hell. Okay, so this is an example, you're going to run into this a lot, where something was modeled in the Revit model that we can't really, we can't show that in a rendering. It's just not cool. But fortunately, we have the power to change it ourselves however we like. So I'm going to select this lighting fixture. I'm going to shift select it so that I've got that light and the lighting fixture both selected. And I'm going to play with it until it doesn't look so ridiculous. And I'm not blaming lighting here. This is neither the piping guy's fault nor the lighting guy's fault. It's both of their fault. But again, that's fine. At this level of models, oftentimes you're also going to be working with models that they're in DD, or they're halfway through CD. They haven't gone through the coordination yet, but someone wants an animation for it. But they also, so it's appropriate that there's stuff like this in here still. It just hasn't been fixed yet. But we don't want to show it in an animation, right? So just go in here, fix it real quick, and don't worry about it. So I'm going to turn the roof on. So mess this up. So that's right in the way. So I might just rotate this guy. So I'm going to hit R for rotate, Z. So if I just start moving my mouse, it's going to rotate crazy. So I'm going to hit Z, which constrains it to rotating around the Z axis, and hit 90. That rotates at 90 degrees. And I'm going to hit GX. Yeah, let's do something like that. And I'm going to turn the roof back off. And now you notice it's pretty dark over here. So I might just go ahead and duplicate this guy and move it over here so that I have some lights over here too. Okay. Yeah, I'm cool with that. Alright, quick and dirty lighting job. Let's see, maybe one over here. Sure. Hard to say what's going on in there. Alright, so we've got our interior lights going on. So that's nice. When we go in, we'll be able to see things. But you'll notice that there's no sunlight. Save, by the way. There's no sunlight going on here. We can't see what's going on in the cooling tower yard. So we need to come up with some kind of solution for the sun. And there's a couple ways of doing that, but the easiest way is just to add a sun. So Shift A, light, and then there's an object that handily simulates the sun. And it doesn't matter where in XYZ space this is, and that's part of the point of the sun thing. So if you see how it's lit, if I move it down here, it's still lit. It's basically just saying that there's a sun coming from this direction, and that's true for pretty much everywhere in the model. So I'm just going to give this a little bit of a tilt. So I'm going into a side view. and I'm hitting R and then moving the mouse, and make it a little more interesting, do it something like that. And that is fine for now. Again, we're going to be tweaking this. I'm going to duplicate this, Shift D, and I'm going to point it. No, actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go into the world button over here, and you see that it says background at the surface of basically the world. It's saying it's gray right now, so we can change this to white, and you can see how that's changing, sort of the global illumination, and this is how strong it is. We're going to change this to a slight blue color. Yeah, and that's going to simulate the color of the sky, the impact of the sky. I'm going to play with the strength a little bit. Yeah, it's fine for now. I'm going to turn the roof back on. Yeah. Yeah. Fine for now. Cool. So that's it for now. We got our basic lights set up, so they're all functioning, and we are now going to move on to shading the materials.